afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the final lectures of the course in MOOCs titled Web-Based Decision Support System for Engineers and Practitioners. Sorry, I apologize for my hoarse voice because I was not very well for a few weeks and I just got my voice back. So kindly bear with me in this lecture for this villain-like voice, but I'll try to do my level best in this process. So today we are going to look into the forms and PHP if you look at the title. So just as a quick recap, because there is a couple of major questions that people had, we were looking at the course of decision support system, and I've been doing mostly the technicalities of DSS, and we talked about 4 aspects of decision support system. Okay, number 1 we had was the DBMS, database management system. So then we had what we call as UIMS, user interface management system. Then we have what we call as MBMS, model based management system. And then we also have what we call as KBMS, knowledge based management system. And as part of DBMS, we have seen what's a database, and we have seen what is a MariaDB, and we have seen what is SQL. We also seen ER diagram, etc., the design of the database. So we are seeing so many components of this. In UIMS, user interface management system, we have studied HTML, then forms as UI. We studied about usability, etc., as part of this, right? And in model based management system, we kind of study towards the application program, server side scripting, we studied PHP, etc. Yeah. And then knowledge based management system, we started looking at something simple called what are models, or what you call as instead of models we can call it as knowledge, and how to capture it. Very basics of it. That's all we studied, right? The advanced of this portion will be in the second part of this course. Okay, the next part of this course, the advanced modeling. It will also be as the second part, because we didn't get too much of time. These two we have reasonably covered reasonably well, reasonably broad. Okay. So one or two major points that we missed as part of this whole thing is the missing links for us today. The number one is how the data from HTML form can be captured. This is the one question. So that is what first we will see. The second question we will have is more on networks, expand client server design. Okay. So this was a question asked by a lot of people. Why did we choose the server side model and stuff like that? So the first lecture, this lecture, we are going to focus on how the data from the HTML form can be captured. So that's why it's called forms and PHP. Okay. So this HTML forms gets captured to PHP, and then from PHP it goes into the DBMS. So we have already seen how this transition from model based to PHP. So how the PHP to DBMS is already known. We know this. Okay. We are going to study this missing link, which is this portion, how this data from HTML form is captured into PHP. Okay. All right. So, let's look into just a quick refresher, HTML forms and user input. The most important thing, or the thing that we need to consider very clearly when you deal with HTML forms and PHP, is that any form element and HTML page will automatically be available in your PHP script. So, whatever be the form element. So, the major form element we had was input, or we had a text. Okay, we had text box, buttons, radio button, checkbox, then what you call as pull down lists, etc. So, we have seen so many of these form elements, or we can call all of them as input elements also. Elements, we can call them as input elements, or also known as form elements. Okay, all of these guys. So, any of these form element or input element can be automatically be available in PHP script. Okay. So, the easiest way to do it is you need to use two functions as part of this. The one is the PHP, the $_get and the $_post. Okay. So, remember, in dollar is the prefix of a PHP variable. I hope you guys remember from that. So, anything that you put a $sign on it, dollar and underscore, $_. So, these kind of two acts as two variables, but these are reserved variables. These variables are, you can't use this for something else. It is designed and specifically. So, these $_get and $_post specifically designed PHP variables to capture HTML form data upon the press of the submit button. Okay. So, when you press the submit button, these two variables, they are custom built, specifically designed in PHP, and what they do is they can capture the information, and you can use these variables to retrieve the information from forms, HTML forms, whatever the user input be. Okay. So, let us look into a very simple example as part of this. So, let us look at the sample code. Okay. HTML form, the data input. So, this is the, for just as a refresher, okay, starting of HTML tells browser to start parsing HTML. Okay. Then the body tag, so that means the rest of it is the body. We don't have any header tag as part of it. So, then we have the form. This is the form. This says HTML form, create an HTML form, and then action is equal to welcome.php. So, action implies there is a script in some place which is titled welcome.php and method is post. So, when would this be triggered? When you trigger it, when you press the submit input type, it is a button, submit, right. So, if you look into this HTML form, the form will look like this. Okay. This is a web page. The first thing is input type is text, name is fname. So, what it does is it will create a form like this, name, give you a text box. Okay. There is no size, nothing of the sort. So, default size it will go to 50 and you will get a big text box like this, and this is named, this text box is named as fname. That is the name of the unique name of this text box. The next one is called age. Okay. And there is also nothing. So, it will be a similar size of a text box, and this is named as age. Okay. So, the fname and age, these are the two names of this text box, and the last one is input type is submit. So, you have a button, it creates a button called submit. Okay. So, this is what the user will see when they see this form. Okay. What also it does is, this form within these two body of the comment, it tells what to do when the button is pressed. The action, okay, the action element of HTML tells the browser what to do. Okay. So, it tells when you press the button, the action is when it is on pressing the button, it says invoke welcome.php script or file, whichever is in the current directory, wherever this HTML file is, and then using the method of post, transfer all values of form elements to the PHP script. So, what it says is, when the user presses the submit button, you will have two things. The f name will have some value typed by the user, okay, and the age will have some value typed by the user. Both of these values, whatever you capture, with appropriate identifier, transfer it into the welcome.php script file. Okay. And that is what this is being mentioned. And then you close the HTML tag and then you body tag and then the HTML tag. The HTML is over that way. So, when the user fills out the form, when any user fills out the form above and click the submit button, the data is sent to the PHP file welcome.php and it is done with the post. The method is post. So, it will go in the $_post variable. So, if you want to find where this data is in that PHP file, you just need to go there and call the $_post variable, and you can extract all those variables and values right there at that point. Okay. So, that is what happens in this. Now, in PHP, how will you handle this? Okay. How will this form be, or this? Now, let us look at the PHP side. Okay. So, now let us redo the HTML form again. Okay. The form is, you have the user sees something like name, age, okay, and the name for the internal name for this is f name, the internal name for this is age, this second box, and then there is a submit button. And we know that upon submit, so this is the HTML page, HTML form, okay, and then there is an intermediary, okay, web server, okay, and then there is something called as a PHP file, okay, somewhere there is a welcome.php, a PHP file is there. So, when the user presses a submit button, the variables, the f name equal to some value and age equal to some value is captured in the $_post variable by the web server, and then it gets transferred to the welcome.php. So, in the welcome.php, what happens? Okay. So, PHP, so this tells the browser to invoke Zend engine to parse PHP script. Okay. So, we are now going to parse the PHP script. So, first thing is you are echoing HTML and body. So, what it does is it creates another HTML page, and because it is HTML and it says there is no head, it is body. So, then you are capturing two variables, $first name is equal to $_post f name. So, the $_post ideally, okay, $_post variable of PHP is an associative array. So, if I say $_ post f name, this f name is the name of this form element. So, if you use $_ post, okay, name of form element, if I do this, then I can get whatever the value, this will return the relevant value stored there. So, if I want to access f name, whatever the value stored in f name is, I just need to say $_ post f name within double quotes. So, then it will take that value and it will assign to $first name variable. Same way $age variable, same way $_ post age, okay, which is the name of the second form element. Okay. So, now $first _ name and $age has both of these values associated with those variable. Now, what you do is you are going to print echo welcome. So, the first it will print welcome, okay. Then $first name, okay. So, and then there is an exclamation mark and a line break. So, let us say I will put the first name as in this case is Raju, okay, that is what the value I typed. So, then this $_ first name it will show it as Raju and then we will put an exclamation mark, okay, and then there is a line break. So, it will go to the next line. The next line will say you are and then it will print the age. Let us say I put the age as 25, okay. So, we will put 25, then it will print years old, okay, and then that is it. So, this captured the value of the form elements Raju and the age whatever is typed with the help of web server using the dedicated variable of $_ post, which is an associative array as I said, and then it transferred it into the PHP script. And in the PHP script using the variable the $_ post reserved variable associative array with the name of the form element given as the key value, okay. This is the key. With that key you can retrieve whatever the value that is stored and can be assigned to the variable. Once you get the value in the form, not the form, the PHP script, you can do whatever you want with that, okay. All right, and then you close the HTML and this completes the PHP script. So, at this point it will end parsing using the Zend engine, okay. So, that will happen, that is how this translation or this movement between the HTML form to the PHP script happens. Now, another variable, now let us look at this. I told there is another one called $_ get, okay. We just saw what is $_ post. So, $_ get is also a built-in, okay. It's not, we call it a built-in function, let us call it as a built-in variable for the time being, okay. It is actually more of an associative array, okay, and it is used to collect values from a form, okay, the values from a form sent with the method get, okay. So, in the previous example we saw the method is post, okay. So, it will invoke $_ post. If you change this to method equals get, if I do this, okay. So, this will invoke $_ get variable or method, right. The main difference with the get and the post is the information sent from a form using the get method is visible to everyone, okay. It is visible to everyone means where? It will be displayed on the browser's address bar. So, if you write something, it will actually show somewhere http://www.google.com, okay, and then each variable name. So, it will be f name equals Raju age comma age equals 25 and like this, you will see that. So, whatever the value that you type in the HTML form, it will be visible to everyone at the browser's address bar. It has a disadvantage because if you use password and other things, that will also be made visible to this. Plus also there is another disadvantage. There is also limits on the amount of data that can be sent, maximum of 100 characters. Okay. This in certain cases 256 is possible, but that is it, you cannot send any more than that. Okay. Usually you can take it as 100 characters is what you will get. Okay. So, the as I said earlier, it collects, the function collects the form data, and the names in the form fields will automatically be the keys in the $get array. It's an, as I said, it's an associative array. Okay. So, it will automatically get that. So, whereas the other advantage is the post function, the built-in $post function can collect the values from a form sent with the method post. As I saw, so it will collect all the values from a HTML form and it send using the post method. Okay. The main advantage is the information sent from a form with the post method is invisible to others and has no limits on the amount of information to send. Okay. So, in $_get, okay, it is 100 characters limitation, send on address bar, visible to everyone. These three things will happen with the $_get. $_post, okay, no limit of characters. Okay. This a max size is a default 8 MB max size. This can be changed, but can be changed in with, okay. No need of address bar and invisible to others. So, you will preserve the sanctity or safety of the information that is sent out as part of this form. Okay. As I said earlier, there is an 8 MB max size for the post method by the default, but it can be changed by the setting post max size in the php.ini file. So, it is not a big deal, you can change it into whatever you want, just you need to go and update the php.ini file and it can be changed to 10 MB, 20 MB, whatever the stuff you want to do. Okay. So, then there is the another function, okay, or we need to look into this $_request function. Okay. This is another built-in PHP function. Okay. So, the built-in $_request function PHP contains the content of both $get and $post. Okay. So, $request can combine. Okay. So, $request can combine both get and post methods. Okay. So, the request function can be used, it can be used to collect form data sent with both get and post methods. Okay. So, you instead of remembering whether it is get or post, just use request, that is another way to do. Example is $fname is equal to $request fname. Okay. So, this may have been captured through get or post, it does not matter. Whatever way it was captured, the request will be able to handle this. Okay. However, there is one important thing to this. This is only works with PHP 4.1 or higher. So, if it is an old version of PHP, you may not be able to use the request function. Okay. So, if it is PHP 4.1 or higher, then you can definitely use this function. Okay. So, that brings us to the end of the this topic, and as I said earlier, we just covered how to capture the form element and how to get the data to PHP. We saw the usage of get, we saw the usage of post, and we also saw how we can combine get and post with the help of request. The only problem with the request is only available from PHP 4.1 or not, but request can handle either get or post. You don't have to worry which method it is captured, whether it is get or post. Request can handle that. But in older versions of PHP, when you are dealing with legacy codes and stuff like that, remember that request will not work. Okay. So ideally, the right thing to do it is, if you use post to capture if you are going to use the method of post to send the data from the HTML form, it is better to use the post in the PHP script. If you are using to send the get from the HTML form, then use the get. My advice is, as much as possible, stay away from get unless it's really simple data, and it doesn't matter whether somebody sees it or not. It doesn't matter to you. If that's the case, and there's a limitation of 100 characters, if it is well within that, then you can use get. It's the quickest and fastest way to do it. But if there is anything sensitive like a bank account information, some personal stuff, date of birth, etc., that you don't want people to see, so then it's always better to go with the post method. Nobody get to see that. But remember, there is by default PHP, there's an 8 MB limitation. But if you want to change the limitation to 20 MB, you can go to the php.ini file, and you can change the variable with the post max size, and you can change it into whatever you want, and then you can go from there. Okay. So with that, we come to the conclusion of this topic, and now you already know how to transfer data from PHP to database. Okay. We saw how to write a query, how to create the connection, how to store that, all those information. So that's what it is. And the next lecture, or the final lecture, we will just look into the different type of computer networks, because that has been a major question by people, and what are the type of networks and etc. We will cover that in the next class, which will complete the lecture for this particular last week. Thank you very much.